Good morning, people. I'm going to do a lecture this morning about journalism, how to become a journalist. So, this is something, a lecture I was given to my teenage son, my 18-year-old son, about, taking a degree course in journalism. But it also goes for older people that are interested in becoming a journalist. They might be sitting there thinking, well, how do I go about it if I want to be a journalist? Now, getting a degree in journalism, which is the path I told my son to go down, is just something that I would prefer him to do. And that is because when I was working on Fleet Street, I always had the nagging thing, oh, I'm not like such and such. I worked for a long time with Ian Cobain, and he had that. I met up with Nick Davies again. He had the Oxford degree, so I would like my son to go that pathway. But you don't need that. I ended up with my byline in the Sunday Times many times, in the Mail on Sunday, carrying out investigations for the Daily Mail, the Times, front page stories. I worked for the Daily Mail for over a decade and a half. What and how did I get there? You might be thinking, with my lack of education. I was very lucky that when I left school, I was a kid in care, and somebody that came to the kids' home to look at us, to examine, us for their degree. Their father was a military man, and he was starting off a detective agency, and a few of us went and spoke to him, with the idea of going to work there as a trainee. We were offered that, and it was thought that it was mainly for the boys. And the boys went forward. My boyfriend there at the time went forward, but none of the boys got it. It was just the girls who got it. I was one of the girls. And it was basically, stuff where we were taught to carry out surveillance, carry out tracing people, carry out asset searching. And I made it a career. I don't know why I made it a career, because it's a career for somebody that doesn't really know who they are. And a lot of the time I was doing undercover work, which was setting up an identity, setting up a name, and there wasn't much online back there. It was a lot easier. And then going along and working somewhere as somebody completely different, not as me. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having relationships with people not as me. It was a time where I felt I could be very confident as Susan or Jane, completely confident, a completely new person, because Christine was shy, didn't have any self confidence, and wasn't able really to engage with people very much. Yet people scared me. But as Jane or Susan, I could be quite strong, and I found it very enjoyable. I was good at what I did. If my bosses, which were usually, because I dotted around then different agencies, ex-military, CID, DSs, Ken Irwood, Roger Cleckley. Then I worked for ex-MI6 officers, Michael Oatley, and Stuart Paul Robb, and just really enjoyed these people, enjoyed their outfits. One of them got lots of police work, obviously Ken Irwood, and the other got ex-MI6 work. And then, of course, I worked with Gary Watkinson, his agency, which was all ex-MI5 work. For a while, a couple of years back, I set up my own agency with him and a few other ex-military guys. And then COVID came in, so that was a halt to that. So this is where we are at the moment. PIs haven't got much work, but I wasn't a PI for a long time, and this is where newspapers came in. I had dated a guy called Phil Hall. He was a newspaper person, and I had had a few visits to the serial killer Ian Brady. I was trying to find out, why he did what he did. I was very bright, but because of my adoptive parents putting me back into care, my education had gone up the wall. And so there I was stuck, a working class person with no education to back up, with no employment. So this was something I had done because I'd always wanted to be a psychiatrist. Phil Hall wrote a story about me. I ended up dating him. And I saw him working, and I saw him meeting Bridget Bardot. I saw him, you know, dining out in Joe Allen, mixing with Page Three girls. And I did want to be a Page Three girl back then, so I didn't really have ambitions to be a journalist. But I noticed what he was doing. He did a thing called filing copy. They don't do that anymore, but it was a case of you ring a certain number, you say who you are, and you say, I'm about to file copy, and then you dictate your story down the phone to a secretary. Then it ends, and then that story will be sent to the news editor to say yes or no, and then they will ring you. And I noticed him doing it, and I thought, well, hang on, I can do that. I'd gone to grammar school, an all-girls grammar school. I'd been educated up to the point where my adoptive parents put me back in care and everything crashed. So I'd had an education up to about age 14. So I was bright enough, and I thought, I can do this. I can be a journalist. And so I went off then to live in America, New York, and I pounded the streets to try and get stories. Now, my first story was that I went to get my hair done, and my hairdresser had done Madonna's hair. And he was talking about it, saying, oh, it's falling out now because of the bleach. And so I thought, okay, rang the file copy number that I'd made a note of, and file copy of the story. What happened? It got Page 3 of the Sunday People. And I thought, hang on, this is the easiest thing in the world. Then I was walking down 42nd Street, and I came across some speakers called the Children of Israel, and they were speaking about hating white people. The white man was a blue-eyed devil. He was really interesting, this speaker. He was called James. He had a Muslim name, black Muslim name, Lahab, and I thought, I'm interested in you guys. And I said, would you ever go to England? And they were like, yeah, we're going to England. So I thought, bang, that's a story. Again, I filed copy. We met, James and I, in this little McDonald's type place. And he said, oh, we might be starting a revolution. I took some pictures of him. But all the time I was doing this, I always felt, you're not a proper journalist. You're not a proper journalist. You're not a proper journalist. Because I didn't have that degree. Part of that got in, I think, Page 10. Sunday People. Then I came back to London, and I thought, I want to do this, and I want to do it as a career. So I set up anyway as a detective agency, Christine Hart Associates, and this is way back in 1992. And I thought, well, what can I offer them? I can't really go as this person. Yeah, I've done a couple of stories. I've done, I think, some trials out there. Again, I got very into helping black people who had had injustices. James had a really strong effect on me, and I thought, I want to be a journalist like this. And I was very good with like going to people, having trials, having sufferings, and saying, I want to put your story across. And they were trusting me, and I was getting their story, and I was intensely protective of them because I had Phil Hall do a really nasty story on me. And so when I got back to London, I set up the detective agency, but I thought, I don't want to do this now. Now I know how to be a journalist. But I thought, okay, I want to get closer to a newspaper. How do I do it? And so I thought, well, what about as a private detective? And I knew some private detectives work for the newspapers, and I thought, I know. So I got my letterhead saying Christine Hart Associates on the top, put a picture of myself, professionally done, and sent it to Greg Miskew, sent it to Alex Marinchak. I sent it to news editors because I knew news editors were the controllers. And I heard back from the Sunday Mirror, and I heard back from the News of the World, and I think I heard back from the Daily Mail, all at once, all at the same time. And it was only Greg Miskew that said, come and see me for a drink. And I went to see him, and he showed me, I passed him my business card, and he said, how many people have got this? And I thought, every newspaper that's ever been made. And I thought, well, I best not say that. And so I said, just you. And he believed it, bizarrely. He believed it. I felt a little bit mean, but there I was, you know, in this little flat, and I didn't have a penny, and I thought, I need work from you. So he began to give me work, and it was just little bits and bobs of work, finding people basically, nothing to do really with journalism. And then I decided to go off to Los Angeles to do a radical therapy, to get to my childhood sexual abuse, my childhood in care. I spent my babyhood in care, being adopted age 4, then got, after they'd sexually abused me and battered me, got chucked back into care, age 13, 14, and grown up then the rest of the time in care. And then got chucked in a homeless hostel at the end. That's what happens to kids in care. And managed to pull myself up. Not a happy story. So there I was, doing this therapy in Los Angeles, and it was curative. What I noticed on the way back was, I looked at the sign for London flights, whatever, you know, when it comes up on the ticker tape thing and it makes that ticker ticker noise, and it came out, it said London. I looked at it and I thought, I'm ready to rock and roll now. And I went back, moved in a beautiful penthouse flat in Queen Elizabeth Street called The Circle, totally gorgeous, totally expensive rent, £2,000 a month, and I just had that 2,000, just spent that straight away. And I went back to Greg Miskew. I said, I'm back now from America. I want proper work off you. And the other people that had also been using me. And I started to work. I started to really turn over a lot. And I started to have, what I was really good at was when these editors had a story but didn't know how to stand it up. And I had worked for a long time for a company called Nationwide Investigations. It was run by an ex-CID officer called Frank Battis. Frank Battis, I used to say to lots and lots of private work used to come in, and I used to say to him, well, the detectives, this is where I first worked with Gary Watkinson, the ex-MI5 officer. We were all in a little room together. It was really squashed, and we were the detectives basically. And so cases came in, they were put in brown files, and we would, when we had completed a task, completed a job, we would go into Frank's office and take one off the pile. What happened, Gary Watkinson used to get in really early and pick out the creamy jobs. The creamy jobs were things that were easy, things that were exciting, and there was a lot of really amazing investigations for amazing people. He fancied me, so he used to give me the cream. I don't even think he took it for himself. He used to give it all to me. But some of the times I used to look at the investigations and think, how do I do this? I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. And I remember the first time I felt that, I went into Frank's office and I said to him, I can't do this. And he said to me, oh, you can't do it. You can't do this investigation. And I said, yeah, well, I haven't done it before. How would I be expected to do it? And he said, oh, hang on a sec. I can't see that sign above that door there. I said, what do you mean? He said, read that out for me. I said, investigations department. And he said, is that the room that you sit in? And I said, yeah. And he said, why are you sitting in there if you can't investigate? I said, I can investigate. He said, well, then go and investigate. Don't come and bother me and ask me. And it was interesting that kind of kicked off a kind of inner excitement in me. I don't know, it was to prove to Frank that I was good or what. I'm a bit of a people pleaser. But I got good, and I got really good. And there wasn't an investigation that came through that door that I couldn't do. And I climbed, ended up getting my own office. Barry Trigwell came to work there, and I wanted to write books. I wanted to write novels. And I told them I was leaving. They threatened to break my legs. This is typical of detective agencies that tend to often be run by, if it's not ex-spooks or ex-cops, it tends to be like gangsters. Stuart, he was a gangster, so was Barry Trigwell. They hired Frank Battis, but, you know, Frank is a colourful character too. So that was really interesting. But then after that, I dotted around with other agencies and went to work for myself. But what I found was I carried that with me, that ability to seize on investigations that other people couldn't do. Now, the newspaper world was full of stories that came in as tips, and people had no idea, journalists, because they had gone and got their degree in journalism, but then had no idea how to stand up a job. And I had had these since I was 16, and I was then, I think, 31, and I had that ability to do that, and so I flew. I really flew high, and I remember Dave Dillon, who's now the Mail on Sunday editor, saying to me, "You'd like it if there was a big desk where we all had to come and ask you how to do things." And I said, "Yeah, I would." Now, instead of seizing that opportunity like I should have and keeping my skills to myself, I actually trained. I trained the staff at the Sunday Mirror to do what I did, to think how I would think. And then when Tina Weaver came in, she was a girlfriend of Phil Hall, who I had dated. She just dropped me out, and that is typical of newspapers. They can use you for a long, long time. You can be a little star, and then when they feel like it, they drop you out. Chris Boffey, who I'd worked for, then moved to the Telegraph, so I started working for the Telegraph. I didn't care that much. I also started working for Ian Cobain at the Daily Mail and Peter Allen, and doing the same thing. And then I thought to myself, well, hang on. I noticed not every journalist on Fleet Street had a degree. Some of them, like Graham Johnson, had gone out to Bosnia and just, I think he'd worked in a shop or something, had gone out to Bosnia, written about what was happening, got his name known by editors. And as I say to my son, if you get a story from somewhere, from anywhere, even from following up a story in the newspapers, which is what people can do, flick through the newspaper, you see something that interests you, follow it up, pick somebody in that story to ring, contact them, and then follow up the story by doing an extended story, or ring round contacts, ask what they've got happening. Then when you have your story, you have about 10 seconds to sell it to a news editor. A news editor is the controller of a newspaper, basically. And you have 10 seconds to sell it to them. And they are a little bit like the man from Del Monte. They will be like, no. And if they say no, they put the phone down. Now, if you keep ringing that editor, it's always the same one on each newspaper, usually. And they know your name, they know your voice, and you keep ringing them with duds, you're going to be stopped being put through by the secretary, or when they hear you, they'll be like, oh, busy, and then they will slam the phone. These are people that really don't mind slamming down the phone. So you've got that 10 seconds to sell, and you can't get yourself a bad reputation by keep giving duds. Now, people often think that it's a really, really easy thing to get your byline in a newspaper. It's actually the hardest thing in the world. But not if you keep pushing at it. If you keep pushing, soon you'll get a breakthrough and you'll know what you need to do that. So what you need to do that is hustle really great contacts. Now, you have to specialize in a certain field. When I worked on Fleet Street, for some reason, even though people were meeting celebrities and I'd done stories on celebrities and knew people that knew, all the EastEnders cast and Sly Stallone and, so many celebs, and I could have worked in there. For some reason, I was sent out by Greg Miskew to Belfast to cover a story about the UDA gun running. And I met up with the UDA leaders, and I don't know why it was. They impressed me. I guess it's the sort of high levels of testosterone in those guys. And I thought, hang on here, they just treated me like a princess. I was good at talking to them, and I thought, I'm good at this. And I was fascinated walking around the streets of Belfast, seeing the IRA streets that Protestant can't go down, the Shankill Road where a Catholic can't go down, and I always felt it in my blood. Now I'm adopted, but I am Irish, so I would be Fenian, and I kind of felt it almost in my blood. Even though I got on really, really well with the UDA and ended up dating one of those guys when I was out there and really getting on well with John White. I still keep in contact. Not with John White, sadly, I like John White, but with a lot of those guys, and I meet up with them when they're here, and forged a lifetime bond really. And I thought I'm good at this, so I began to specialize in terrorism, as they call it, and then I got my contacts in the Real IRA, as most people know, and it's a really good idea to specialize, to find something that interests you. And when you specialize in something and then you get a name for yourself, you get contacted by other newspapers. Now, I hadn't worked for the Sunday Times at this point. I'd gone out, I decided that I wanted to specialize in terrorism. I spoke to a lot of editors that I knew, like the Evan, I can't remember his name. Is it Evan at the Sunday Mirror, and Matt Bell and those guys? When I ever had lunch with them, I would talk about being interested in the IRA. My first step, I literally, and this is what you have to do, you have to keep banging on doors constantly when you do want to specialize. And, newspapers won't help you do this. You're on your own. Even if you're working on staff as a newspaper, you're very much on your own. You're very much left, as Frank Battis said to me, what does that say above the door? You're very much left on your own. There's nobody helping you or mentoring you when you're working on a national newspaper. So it's just the same. Being staff is just the same as being freelance. They're the same. They really are the same. If you get yourself in a position of being valued freelancer, it's the same thing. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to, try and get yourself a position on staff. You just have to get the stories. And stories come from contacts. So take my experience, for example. I decided, went over there, found Belfast, the absolutely most fascinating place in the universe. Went down to Crossmaglen in South Armagh, got basically picked up by some IRA officers, and just thought I don't know what it was, I just had a massive draw. I thought I want to write a book about this place, I want to journalize about it. Excuse me. And but I went back to London, and did I have any contacts there? Did anyone really working on any of the newspapers have contacts? They didn't. And so I really made a fool of myself over the next couple of months to a year by hanging out in pubs in Kilburn, and anybody with an accent, anyone in the Real IRA, anyone in the UDA, giving cab drivers my number, and till I one day was looking at a story online, and it was written by a journalist, I think in the Irish Times, and I'd been reading a lot on my subject, reading a lot of books on the IRA, UDA, and this journalist was talking about someone called Terry Hawken, and Terry, he said in the story, lives in England and is a member of the INLA. Now, the INLA is the Irish National Liberation Army, who have quite a bad reputation as being drug dealers and mafia, and highly dangerous. I thought, one of these guys who lives in London and speaks to journalists. So I contacted the journalist and said, could I please have, your contact? And I'd given him my credentials. I said, work for Sunday Mirror, News of the World, everybody. I'm a freelancer, basically. And he said, yeah, sure. So he gave me Terry's number. And that started, a relationship, a friendship that lasted, 20 years or more of speaking to Terry on a daily basis about this and that. He was a very, very good friend of mine. There was a time when any pain that I had, any upset in my life, Terry, I would ring Terry, constantly on the phone to Terry. And it dwindled to now we don't speak. We would speak about once a month. But back then it was literally a constant. And he said to me one day, this was 1998, and the Omar bomb had gone off, and everybody was disgusted by the Omar bomb. And he rang me and he said, the real IRA are coming to London. And first thing I did was shit myself. And I thought, yeah, and well, why are you telling me? All of a sudden, I wasn't interested in Northern Ireland anymore. I thought, I'm not going to go and have anything to do with the real IRA. Are you kidding me? And anyway, he said, oh, they're having a meeting at this club, in Kilburn. And I thought, oh, really? Okay. Well, and so I rang the Sunday Mirror, and I don't know why I didn't ring the News of the World or the Daily Mail. I guess I had a closer relationship with the Sunday Mirror. They had got me staff press pass. I was up at their offices all the time. I've got a massive reputation for working for the News of the World, but it was, a lot of the time, mostly it was the Sunday Mirror. So I went to Matt Bell or Evan. Gosh, I can't remember his second name. I think it was Evan. And I said, oh, the real IRA are coming to London. I got this intelligence, and perhaps put a reporter on it. And he said, well, you go. And I said, well, I'm not really a proper reporter. I'd only really done investigations to this point. I said, I'm not a journalist though. And he said, come on, you can do that. And I said, okay. And so this is a time when Graham Johnson was the investigations editor there. And he said, I'll get Graham Johnson to meet you near the club. So I said, fine. And I remember driving around London, and I got to the roundabout at Park Lane, and I went round that roundabout 6 times. I can't go, can I go, can't go, can I go? I was speaking to a guy I knew in Belfast, and I said, I can't go. And he goes, oh, come on, just go, it's what you want. And then I rang Evan. He said, where are you? Graham's looking for you. And I said, I don't want to go, I can't go, I'm too scared. And he's like, come on. He said, I had lunch with you the other day, and all you could talk about was the IRA and the UDA, and you're not going. And I said, yeah, well, it's the Omar bombers, though. It's a real IRA, they're probably a bit leery. I'm not going along to meet them. And he said, don't be an arsehole, just get there and then slam the phone down. This is the way editors often speak to people. If you want to be a journalist, you have to get used to that. And so I went along, not feeling very happy at all, in the depths of Kilburn and outside this club. And Graham Johnson was there. I hadn't really met him before then, I don't think. And he brought somebody else with him, quite a nice looking chap. And Graham said, we're going to go undercover. So I said, well, how do you mean undercover? He said, we'll be supporters of the real IRA. I thought, oh, are you absolutely kidding me? This is what I found working on Fleet Street, was journalists had no idea about how to be investigators. I mean, I'd worked undercover, for ex-cops, ex-MI5, and knew how to play it. One thing you don't do is to go near highly dangerous individuals and go as undercover, because they will kill you. And especially as it's something like a terror organization. And Liam Campbell was there, Michael McKevitt and the big players. And, it was a private meeting. It wasn't to do with the press. And I thought, especially having the experience as an undercover operator, unless you're going as an employee to a company, you don't just go up to people in that way. You have to build something and, build it from a distance. What I noticed with journalists, they would always want to go in straight in, which is silly. And they had no idea about undercover operations journalists. And in true style of a journalist, he said to me, we will be IRA supporters. And I said, hang on, how have we heard of the meeting then? And he said, well, through your contact. And I said, well, hang on. So when it goes tits up, then my contact then looks like a grass. I said, this is like serious stuff here. This isn't a lark. You know, he will get tortured and die for that. And Terry had already been tortured. He had no, oh God, am I allowed to say this about him? Probably, I won't call it, I don't think he listens to my YouTube, but he has no balls. His balls have been blow-torched off. He was blow-torched off by his friends in the INLA. That is how the INLA roll. And did he speak to them afterwards? Yeah, he's a commander. He's a commander to this day. So this is how they roll. You know, someone gets their balls torched off. They get taken down from being hung up at the ceiling, and they carry on going down the pub with their friends. So this is serious to do something like that. So I said, I know, I'll go in there first. And so I went over there first, and they were in a club, and the first thing I saw was Francie Mackey, actually. And there he was in a Crombie, looking hard, but hard like in a strange way, in a way that it's really hard to explain, but somebody you do not screw with. In fact, the only person that I have come across like that is Stuart Paul Robb, the ex-MI6 officer who I work for. He's the kind of person, I remember when I first met him, I'm just sitting opposite him, shitting myself. And he wasn't a threat to me in any way, but it's just that kind of character where they have a kind of simmering something or other. And this Francie Mackey had this kind of simmering high dominance. And I took one look at that face and I thought, you are kidding me. And I went over, tried to reach him. It was through a curtain, and somebody stopped me and put their hand out, a man with white hair. And I said, oh, hi, I'm a journalist. I work for the Sunday Mirror. I've been passed details here of the meeting. Might I interview some of you? And he said, no, you can't, and get outside. So I went outside. I went over to Graham Johnson, and I thought, oh, damn, they found us out straight away. And he was, oh, right. He said, well, we might as well go. And I said, no, we should wait, and they might talk to us. So I went back over, and the guy with white hair said, we're going to set up a press conference for you. And I'm like, oh. And he said, in a pub, that pub, you see that pub across the road? And he pointed to the main road, and there was a pub. And I said, oh, what, in a pub? And he said, no, in the attic room in the pub. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. I'll be over there. I will be over there. He said, in half an hour, be there. He said, just go up the back stairs, you'll be let in. I thought, go up the back stairs, be let in. Now, I had read the Shankill Butchers about how they get people round the back of pubs and they flay their skin. They peel their skin off. And I thought, do I want to get my skin flayed off? No. So I went over to Graham Johnson and I said, they've invited us over into a back room of a pub. Well, me actually, but you can come too. And he went, right, let's go. And I nearly passed out actually on the spot. I remember holding on to this other guy's hand, or was it his arm? I said, no, we're not going. And he said, you're kidding, it's an interview with the real IRA. I said, what if it's actually not an interview? What if it's come in the back room and get your skin peeled off, or sit on a cooker? That was another mode of torture, that they would use. And he said, no, we're going. And I remember, I think I floated out my body at that point, but I remember crossing the road. I remember holding on to this guy's hand. I don't remember his name. He said, you'll be okay. It's okay. They're not going to hurt us. But I was shitting bricks. But by the time I was walking up the attic stairs, I kind of felt I had a new confidence that must have came from somewhere, because I walked up the stairs and the first man I saw was a guy, Michael something, I can't recall his name. He was in the paper quite a lot. A really famous IRA man, Michael, Mick, something, I can't remember. But we ended up knowing each other really well. And I saw him incredibly good looking. And I said, oh, the scenery up here is good anyway. And he looked at me and he said, you're not so bad yourself, woman. And I looked around, and it was a fairly small room for a conference, about the size of a drawing room. And there was a massive tricolour flag, no cookers to be seen. So I thought, well, that's okay. And sat down. They sat down in a line in front of us. And at that point, the Observer turned up, a black guy from the Observer who turned out was dating the sister of a friend of mine, Bill Goldman. And so we had a chat. And next thing, they started the press conference, and they asked me, did I want the first question? The guy with the white hair said, you over there, first question. So I'd obviously listened to people, politicians, giving conferences and how journalists behave. So I knew to say my name, what paper I was from, and my question. So he said, you start. So I looked over at the Observer guys and thought, well, I'm not going to make a crumb of myself. I said, Christine Hart, the Sunday Mirror, why were you arrested for the Omar bomb, Mr. Mackey? And he just looked at me, wasn't thrown at all, with these steely eyes, not even showing anger or anything really. He said, that's, what did he say? Something about, oh, that's assault on our people. So I went up to him after, it finished. And I said, how do I keep in contact with you people? I'm actually writing a book. I wasn't writing a book, but I thought, what other way can you say? And he gave me a phone number of somebody. That somebody shall remain nameless. And he gave me a phone number of somebody who was there at the time but wasn't speaking to anybody. And Graham and I went downstairs, and the other guy, we had a beer. We finally got away. Did that end up in the paper? I can't remember, but it would have had Johnson's name on it. And what happened then, I started working with Johnson on other things. We now are like frenemies. We're at the moment friends through James Hanning. But, we've had a lot of hatred back and forth, a lot of threats and all that. But, I tend to forgive Graham. And we had a beer. We downtimed. It was weird. I felt weird for the rest of the day. But then began my relationship with the Real IRA. So what I did, I had the number and I called it. And I called it the next day. And I called it every single day for the next, I think, 2 years. And I built myself my relationship. Now, how that happened is the same way that I built my relationship with Kenneth Bianchi, also Ian Brady. And how you do it, and it's very hard to build contact, especially if you're going to build it with crime people, with terrorists. They're different from celebrities, but I believe it's a similar kind of thing. You ring each and every day and you forge your relationship. And it is really, really hard. And the only way you can do it is to actually like the person. I don't believe in feigning affection for people at all. I don't think you can do it. But journalists do it the whole time. And I think this is where they fall short. They approach a person that they want to become a journalist in their field. Say it's football. They approach a footballer and they feign a relationship with them to get stories, to have them as a contact. Now, I noticed when I was on the receiving end of Phil Hall, who wanted to get stories out of me, and also other journalists over time who wanted to get stories out of me. And I found the whole thing of, I want to be your friend, is very insulting. There was a woman who did it one time, came around my flat, interviewed me, and then said, I thought we'd become friends. I thought we'd start going out to clubs. I looked at her, I said, why would you want to be my friend? And, I didn't mean it nastily, but it's a thing that journalists do, and it's ugly. And I don't think it works on people because they smell it. And I thought to myself, if I want to specialize in terrorism, I'm going to have to pick men that I actually like, that I actually want to have a relationship. And when I started, concentrating on the Real IRA, they would take the mickey out of me and say, you can't report on us from a fancy flat in London. I started to date someone from Belfast. I think he was connected. I think at that point they were spying on me. They wondered who I was. You know, this guy came out of nowhere. I was later told by a contact of mine, oh, you think Paul and Eugene, his brothers, on IRA? Yes, they are, and you are completely, you've been crawled all over. Whether they are or not, I mean, he denies it to this day, but, you know, he's 5 brothers, and they live in Dundalk, so I don't know. But, you know, sometimes people are secretive about their connections. But what I decided to do was to get close to people that I actually liked. So in Belfast, as soon as I got there, I got from who did I get it from? One of my contacts in Inla. They were looking after me, passed me Johnny Adair's phone number. So I rang him up. I said, hi, I work for the Sunday Mirror, sometimes the News of the World, and I want to meet up. Let's meet up. Let's have coffee. Let's get to know each other. And got to know him, got to know White. And that's how you roll. And that's how I rolled when I was in Belfast. And by going to people that I actually found absolutely fascinating in the real IRA case, okay, it was Liam Campbell. I found Liam Campbell absolutely fascinating. So it was easy, you know, to get close, to get close, whatever. Okay, there I might have overstepped the mark. But that is what you have to do. And these people have to become your whole life. You can't be, oh, there's them and there's my life and my real friends. They have to become real friends. And to this day, I know these people. And so if I want to do a story, and there's still people that come to me and say, what's going on in Northern Ireland? I can't believe when Michael McKevitt went to prison, the Sunday Times came to me and said, how are the boys reacting to that? And I was like, yeah, hang on, you know, I'm back in London. And it was when I had my son and I was getting calls through, and they were saying, oh, we've got a story, and this, that. And I changed when I had my son. And they were saying to me, oh, you've lost your edge. You know, these people find it easy to sort of throw the insults. And I found that I had lost my edge. It was like I had a whole different persona that came out. It was like that movie, A Long Kiss Goodnight. I was in the zone as the gingerhead teacher. I was baking cakes, and, you know, I didn't want to talk to these men. I felt like, who are you? What's your business? I'm your babying here. And I did lose my edge. I do feel it coming back. I do feel that I want to journalise again. I am forging contacts again over in Belfast. I do want to write about those. I want to go and live back there, actually, and I want to take up where I dropped off because it was exciting. I ended up being taken under the wing because my real IRA stories were so bang on. Well, they would be if there you are with the leader. But because they were so bang on, Liam Clark from the Sunday Times approached me and said, would you work for us? And so then I started getting my bylines in the Sunday Times. He started sending me to special branch conferences, and I forged my contacts. And that is how you journalise. Journalism isn't built in a university. Journalism is from knowing what you have to do and being 100% obsessive about it. It's about not having a life. It's about not watching TV for hours and hours upon end. It's about getting up in the morning and think, bang, right, what can I do? How can I forge closer contacts with my contacts? How can I, you know, get a story out of them? How can I say to them, you know, what can we do? What's a story? What's happening? How can I be a journalist? How can I function as a journalist? And that is how you become a journalist. You flick through the newspapers, you see what everyone else is talking about, you follow up on it, you think, where do I want to specialise in? Any field that you're specialising in, have that passion to do it every day. You push to move yourself forward. Every day you're ringing editors and saying, I got this happening, I got that. I mean, you know, when I was bringing up my son, I stopped the crime stuff. I kept the contacts. I was keeping in contact with them, and you don't let people like that go once you've forged them. But what I was doing more knitting pattern stuff, as I call it, For instance, I was hanging out with Anne Hardy, Tom Hardy's mother, and she was sometimes saying things like, oh, Tom's moved to a house. And I was like, oh, would you mind awfully if I wrote a story about that? She goes, well, how is it a story? Because it's not a story, is it? Oh, Tom Hardy has just moved to Richmond. Though, not a story. So in my capacity as knowing what interests editors to do that, okay, students that are listening, anyone's hand up, how would I get an editor, a very busy, a very jaded news editor on a national newspaper, how would I get them to put that in the newspaper? Anyone's hand up? It's a boring story, isn't it? Oh, Tom Hardy's bought a house. Oh, yeah, you'd expect him to buy a bloody house. Not a story. So what would I do? Would I ring an editor and say, oh, I've got a story. I've got a story. Tom Hardy's bought a house. He'd slam the phone down. Not only would he slam the phone down, if he wanted to do a story on it, he would put a star fee on that. So the freelancer, a story's nicked. Oh, come on, it's a jungle. Stories are absolutely, completely nicked. They don't care if you've worked on it for 10 years. If they can nick it, they'll nick it. And you won't have any say in that. So Tom Hardy's bought a house. That's very nickable. That's how we know that already. Or not interested. But if they are interested, they'll follow it up themselves. But I knew that beforehand. And I knew, when you're talking to a news editor, you're talking to a snake with teeth. And I thought, how can I make that mine? That's what you've got to think. How do I make the story mine? How do I make it mine that they have to come back to me if they want to print it? Well, first of all, you have to say you've got an in with a contact close to them. You've got an in. The story, the person that's given you the story is yours and yours alone. And not only are they yours for this particular story, but they are yours in the future. So if they want to get even more stories, they have to come back to you. But firstly, how do you make the story? So that's how you get them not to steal it. And how do you get them to be interested in a story like that? Well, you have to get it what's known as a bit of welly, okay? A bit of welly is how to fly a kite. It used to be called kite flying back in the day. Now, you see a kite. Now, a kite is on the ground, isn't it? That's a story that's not very interesting. So to get a kite flying in the air, to get a strong wind behind it, what do you have to do? You have to give it a story. Story is a story. It's like Once Upon a Time. Any kind of story. You have to be a storyteller. What does a story need? First of all, it needs uniqueness. First of all, it needs shock value. Secondly, it needs a kind of a dreaminess to kind of interest people. So for that particular story, Tom Hardy buying a house, that's quite boring. What about if he was interested in buying a house that was like a famous house? Like Manderley, for instance. Manderley's beautiful, isn't it? So, how does that start? So, Tom Hardy's buying a house that's like Manderley. No, not that interesting. And the news editor might not have ever heard of Manderley. Okay, so the kite is a little bit off the ground with the Manderley business, but it's not in the air, okay? And kite flying when it comes to newspaper journalism, that kite needs to be up there. Okay, so it's a little bit off the ground with the Manderley. Okay, so what do I do to puff that kite higher? Oh yeah, Tom Hardy is fascinated by Laurence Olivier. He is so fascinated by Laurence Olivier that he has bought a house with a ballroom and he is going to call it Manderley himself. Bang! Your kite is in the air, it's flying, it's a sunny day and you are pulling on that motherfucker. And you are tugging it down and that kite is in that air and the sun is glinting on it and bang, you've got your story in the sun. I can tell that story because I absolutely hate the sun. I don't give a damn if they're angry about that. But that is my invention. So that is how you do it. But you have to have a high disrespect for the news editors if you're going to kite fly it. And you have to obviously keep it to yourself. What happened on Fleet Street for me while I was out in Belfast, Greg Miskew had got into phone hacking. Now, I had introduced him to someone called John Boyle. John Boyle had to, without my knowledge, got this silly trick of ringing 02 to get these code numbers from people. It's not actually hacking. You need a brain for that. It's a rather silly blag. And John Boyle was charging a lot of money for that, £5,000 a time, I believe. And so Greg Miskew decided to nick his office boy, Glenn Mulcair. He'd nicked him, and this poor lad, well, 45-year-old, but lad in so many ways, was busy doing it to the royals and doing it to everybody and keeping the records and just being very silly. And they'd been bust open. I had inadvertently told Boyle that they were doing it. I mean, I didn't know that he knew Mulcair or that he was doing this kind of weird trick. And Boyle had gone crazy and tipped off his friends in the cops, and they had all gone to prison. And so what it did was it made private detectives persona non grata in Fleet Street. I had ended up secretly working for Rebecca Brooks at The Sun from the period of 2003 to 2009. And in 2009, a guy called Nick Parker had set up a silly, nasty scam on Heather Mills, and then roped me into the end by throwing me the phone. Now, when I got speaking to Heather Mills, I tried to calm her down because it was really vicious. I had never been abusive to people when I'd worked in Fleet Street. Mainly I'd concentrate on the terrorism angle, but still, I don't believe in abusing people. And I was speaking this morning to somebody about how Mazza Mahmood had targeted Pakistanis. He targeted Pakistani cricket team. He constantly targeted Pakistanis. And when he did that, I would ring them and tip them off because I don't believe in targeting. So I believed I'd been this little avenging angel. But when it had handed the phone, Heather Mills, she got very upset and put me on her website with me speaking, trying to calm her down. Rebecca got very angry and told me to F off, basically. But that was only after Nick Parker had completely blamed me for the whole thing. Said the whole thing was his idea, was my idea rather than his. And he still works for the Sun. So there we are. But I'm persona non grata with the Sun. And so I worked with Hacked Off to bring them down. And then fell out with Hacked Off and ended up speaking to the Sun's legal team. Didn't fall out with them, but got treated pretty badly and went back to Hacked Off again. And at the moment, are speaking to Hacked Off about the Daily Mail. That's the position I'm in. Why am I in that position is because you could work for years and years on Fleet Street. You could be a star. I was pretty much a star, dressed in gold lame, going to the Daily Mail's parties, treated by Paul Dacre as a princess, ushered to a chair. And then when you're out of it, when the phone hacking sort of bust and people will drop private investigators, they have no second thoughts of just slamming the phone down on you. There's somebody who's, I'm your friend, I'm your friend, I'm your friend, and then slams the phone down. They are psychos. It's only a psycho that will say that, oh, your friends, your friends, your friends, and then just cut you dead and start slagging you off. That is the mark of a psychopath. So when you're on Fleet Street, you're dealing with psychopaths. And that's why I don't feel wrong in talking to Hacked Off. Okay, off and on. But do I mind being a whistleblower? No, because you just, if I'm treated badly, I'm enough of a kid out of a care home to be a bit of a Darren G. I'm not Darren G in that I haven't got muscle. I'm Darren G in that I know certainly loads of fucking the most vicious men on the fucking planet. But I'm not him. So, sometimes if I go to them and say, they're like, that just doesn't mean anything. That's some weakling you can deal with that yourself. So it's not always handy to kind of know the hardest men on the planet because they only ever get involved with your little toughs if you're really, if you're really sort of on the floor. So, yeah, I'm not suited with the broadcasting. It's too tin pot. Revolution Radio is really, really small. The YouTubing, it's really, really small. It's all on a voluntary basis. The truth community is depressing because it's people that aren't professional and they don't care about being professional. God knows when you work on Fleet Street, there's a lot of unprofessionalism. Even that was shocking. I remember sitting with Greg Miskew in a pub, and there was an Australian journalist, and he said, "Wow, your resources for investigations is mega, isn't it?" And I looked at him and I thought, "No, they're not. They don't know anything. They feel their way around in the dark." I mean, the Glenn Mulcair debacle just underlines how poxy investigations are in Fleet Street, how utterly unprofessional, and how, I don't know, that detective agencies that I worked for over the years would never stoop as low as that. It was like, carry on trying to be a detective agency. And, sometimes people say to me about, "Oh, you're a journalist." I'm not a journalist. I haven't been a journalist since I was in Belfast working for the Sunday Times. That finished when I had my son. I haven't been a journalist since then. Since when would being on Revelation Radio, chatting to people, be a journalist? Is something I did for fun. It stopped being fun. It stopped being fun because the people involved in that world are wholly unprofessional and weird. And you just get your reputation, Claudia. And they're like, "You worked over there. You must be establishment," or something, "or you're MI5 secretly." Man, I wish I was. But I'm not. I'm somebody who made wrong decisions. But you know what? Why am I sitting here after living the obsessional life of somebody that got in that position, where I was actually taking bomb warning phone calls and actually liaising with MI5 about the real IRA saying, "We're going to blow up London unless you release some of our political prisoners." And I was the one doing that. So why am I now, I don't know, arguing with some woman in America who I don't know, and she doesn't know me, and just what is going on? It's also skanky. It's also knickers that you've been wearing for a week and then smell them. It's like, I can't bear it any longer. Surely not. You can fall from grace. And there was some guy over an interview that I did with Brian Harvey saying underneath it, "Oh, you're not a professional journalist. You shouldn't listen just to him one-sided." And I thought, I haven't done it in a capacity as a professional journalist. I haven't been a professional journalist since 2003, and I left Belfast. I'm here in London. I am not a professional journalist. I am a mother. Okay, I did that as a chat. Somebody suggested it to me, and then Russell Stone from Australia said, "Oh, you should talk about the Red Room." So I'm like, "Oh, really?" So then I did a second interview. My mind wasn't with it. My mind was on being a mother. I wasn't barely listening, and all the shit that's come off it. And then this other woman in America, again, saying, "Oh, Max Spears, you didn't interview him for the second hour of your show." Well, the reason why is I was bored, damn it, with that tin pot show that's not really a show for a professional person. It's a joke. And I didn't want to do. I did that show because I fancy the pants off Douglas Dietrich. I just wanted to speak to Douglas Dietrich. He was Skyping me every morning. And I thought, "Oh, this is great. Like you." And I thought, well, how can I keep talking to him? I can't sort of expect him to ring me every morning. And then he said, "You should do a radio show on my radio station and I'll jump on there and my producer will produce it." And I thought, well, hang on, this is a bona fide tie with this man who I think is gorgeous and I want to think is absolutely fascinating. I want to talk to the... So I did it. That's why I did it, as a girl bloody groupie for Douglas Dietrich. I didn't take that seriously. And Douglas and I fell out. And as he fell out, I thought, well, I'm not going to do it anymore. Obviously, I'm not going to do it if it doesn't mean I don't get to talk to him. And it was around that time that I was talking to Max about doing it. He'd come on my show, and I said, I don't want to do it anymore unless someone like you wants to co-host. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. So he was going to co-host. So he was going to, I said to him, will you talk? I don't want to talk. So he was talking. So obviously when he's not there anymore, I'm just going to want to be with my son. And I did. And I said to Mike Ringley, who absolutely hated me for no apparent reason, I said, oh, my tech failed. I'm sorry. And he sucked it up. But he said, you don't do that. It's not professional. But I felt like saying, how is your radio station professional? It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. The whole thing of that, truthy movement, I wish I'd never known it, is crazy. It's based on craziness. It's not professional, so why not act unprofessional? And same with that other Red Room interview. That wasn't carried out professionally. And then some people say, well, why didn't you follow it up? I'm a mother. I'm a mother. God damn it. When you're a mother, child comes first. You don't do investigations. You don't follow up stories. And I had the INLA in the base of Terry ringing me. Oh, we've shot 2 soldiers. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cooking fish fingers for my son. What? We've shot 2 soldiers? Fish fingers? You've lost your fucking age, woman. We're not going to bother with you anymore. Oh, right. Well, don't bother with me. I'm a mother. And that's what it's like when you... that's what it's like when you become a mother, and all this bitch and spite. And why didn't you go off and investigate that? And why did you bail out of your show? It's all the same kind of insult. And the same kind of insult from INLA. Okay, we're my friends again now, and I love Terry to bits. But, you know, he was very rude back then. And, Nick Parker from The Sun. Whoa, why didn't you hang up on Heather Mills? Well, my son was there. I couldn't really think straight. When you have a child, okay, and these are all people that haven't got children that are firing this at me. When you have a child, your head turns to scrambled egg. They talk all the time, for one. When they're talking, you can't just turn off. You have to tune in. And when they're younger, it's a load of bloody gobbledygook. But you have to listen. And it makes your brain turn to mush. And my son still needs me every day. I mean, I still pick him up from the 6th form. I mean, I'm not my own person. I'm not who I used to be. And you know what? Mixing with these people that are slapping me for not being... I don't mind getting slapped by Terry. He's a very powerful man who's had his balls burnt off by his friends. I mean, I don't mind being shouted at by him. I don't mind being accused of losing my edge. I don't mind. That's a real man. But I do by these other people. I'm thinking, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Once upon a time, I was really kick ass. Once upon a time, I was sitting with Michael McKevitt, where other people shit pants. I was in a position of Robert Nairak, who was chopped up in tiny pieces. And did Michael say to me, we'll chop you up in pieces, see how you like it, sure. Right in the middle of Dundalk. Did he? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And now, all of a sudden, I'm this, like, I don't know, you're not a proper journalist. You didn't follow that up. Oh, you're not proper. You cut through your show. You're not professional. It's because I'm not one. I'm not one. Of course I'm not one. I'm someone who fancies Douglas Dietrich, is what I am. Oh, and Darren G. I wasn't interviewing him. I just wanted to speak to him, for God's sake. Somebody said to me, you're not listening to him. I wasn't listening to him. I was in a bloody rapture. I was drooling. Of course I wasn't listening to what he was actually saying. So it annoys me. So going back to being a professional journalist, I was talking to my son as I went to pick him up and spend 5 hours driving him around, which I do every day, 7 days a week, as he's a teenager. And I said, why don't you go and get a degree in journalism? I'll teach you the rest of it, which is the main part of it. God knows what they learn in university. The main part of it is to push. The main part of it is to get up and wake up every morning and push. The main idea is not to be upset because someone somewhere is helping you with your novel, and then when you piss and moan to them, they don't give you 2 minutes of their attention, and you wake up miserable over that. That's not being a proper person. That's not being who I used to be. Why aren't I being who I used to be? Sylvia Jones is a lot older than me, and she's still who she used to be. Why have I lost it? Why are there other people out there writing stories and I'm not even bothering writing stories? I'm too busy getting upset because some moron who is helping me write my book, because I'm not middle class and can't get my novels published, and somebody's overwriting them for me up in Scotland. Well, one novel, he's writing it over for me. And of course, I ended up getting a crush on him. And he's not speaking to me. He's sending me bits of my novel overwritten. And yes, it is better than what I've done. And I'm thinking, wow, I really like you. Let's get together. Can I have a bit of my actual original novel in what you're doing? Because actually there's none of my writing in it. So if I try to sell that, I think it's fraud. Not really sure, but actually part of me is wondering, does he want to get me in that amount of trouble? And I'm sitting there upset at the end of the day. I was upset last night, couldn't sleep, because I thought he doesn't like me. And I sent him an email this morning, wasted 2 hours of my time. You don't like me. You don't like me. And I thought, what? Congratulating myself that all these people that are doing YouTubes about me, that I don't care that they don't like me. But there's this other person who doesn't like me. I mean, what the hell? Why aren't I a person anymore? I used to rock and roll, and then some schnoozle says to me, oh, you interviewed Brian Harvey, you're not a proper journalist. Oh, you should have asked other people about that. Well, I wasn't doing it as a journalist, I was doing it as someone that, oh, he's a pop star. Won't that be fun for me to speak to a pop star? That's how I did that. I barely heard what he was saying. I was like, wow, it's Brian Harvey. Ooh, that's exciting. He's a pop star. And then my producer was like, oh, he spoke about that, you've got to speak about that to him again. I was like, really? Did he say that? And then people complain that I don't listen. Of course I don't listen. I don't listen. I don't listen to any of my guests. So I've had enough. I'm going to draw a line under that now. Thank you, people that have subscribed to the channel. That's gone. That is gone. When I use this channel, it will be to speak about my hobbies. I'm so interested in magic. I'm going to have J.S. Garrett, E.A. Coetting. I'm going to rock it in the magic. I find it fascinating. That's going to be a hobby. But what I'm going to do every goddamn day when I wake up is to journalize. So I'm a journalist. I was damn good. I rocked it. I really rocked the fantastic, like a member of Queen. Why aren't I anymore? What am I? Oh, the phone hacking. Oh, the Sun won't speak to me. What, the Sun? The shower of shit that work at that shithole? I'm letting them see me off? What the hell? I can still file copy to, well, not the Daily Mail now at this point. I can still file copy to Mail on Sunday. I can file copy to the Times, Telegraph. I can put it in a goddamn blog. And I'm letting the Sun see me off. Really? That shower of shit. Oh, I know where a lot of their bodies are buried. Oh, so many. And I haven't really talked about it, but I could. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to journalize. I don't care if nobody accepts my story. I don't care. I'll put it in a blog. I'm going to do a lot more writing, my own stories, follow them up. They are not going to be anything to do with true fact, conspiracy, anything to do with that. There's a line drawn under that. And I'm going to go through my Facebook, and anyone connected with that will be deleted. I just had enough. It's boring the shit out of me. And anyone out there that wants to be a journalist, don't sit back because there's some news editor that doesn't like your stuff. Don't think, oh, there's that person over there who's got a degree. I haven't got a degree. Oh, I can't do it. Of course you can do it. It's about getting the story. It's about getting the nugget. And it's out there. Stories are out there. They're just flying through the atmosphere. You just got to grab them. You've got to grab them. And that is the key to grabbing them. That is the key to grabbing them. There's investigations out there that need investigating. You just got to grab them. I love investigating. I am good. I am the most shit hot mother there is with investigating. I think about it. I sleep on it. And people been mocking as well. I see other mocking in this particular milieu. I want to get so out of, because it is so, it's like a really low vibration, a really low, weak vibration of, the IQ levels are low. That's what's bothering me. That's what really gets my right in the old groin there. The IQ levels So the insults are all very Barky the Wonder Dog, it's like, ruff, ruff, ruff. The insults are like that, and you think, oh, come on. And there was this individual, the same one that said, oh, you haven't checked out all Brian said you shouldn't interview him, you shouldn't give him airtime. And then they said underneath, you saying you're a psychic. Well, the fact is, when I was sitting here not doing anything a couple of years ago, before COVID, I thought to myself, what am I good at? And I have got a massively strong sixth sense. It was why I really floated as a private detective, because I would go and sleep on the investigation and know how to follow it up. And I thought, how can I do that to help people? And so I did it for a little bit, but it's not lucrative. It's absolutely not lucrative. It's just not, because you can only do one a day. You can't charge them very much for it because they're all offended. They think it should be for free. And you end up really, really drained, because people that you do it for, you have to really burrow into their energy. You have to feel their energy. Okay. Some people have got good energy, exciting energy. Other people have just got dark energy, really, really dark. And so after you've burrowed yourself into their energy to read them, literally you kind of go inside them, and then you put it inside yourself to kind of read it and find out where they are, where they're going wrong, what they need to do, what they need to take, cut any cords, that kind of thing. It's not like psychic, where it's like it's a whole thing, and I don't know what to call it. Or maybe I would work as it, but I don't want to work as it. It just doesn't work for me. But you kind of see them from the inside out, and I can see past, and I can see future, and I can see where the trouble's coming for them. Pity I can't do it for myself. But at the end of the day, well, I can do it for myself. I get loads of warnings coming about people. Do I listen? Oh, hell no. But doing that, it's soul destroying. It's draining. It's not nice. It's not nice. And even though I help people and they were more than grateful, it's something that I don't want to do. It's something I don't want to do. And then you get people just take the piss out. The low IQ. Oh, you're shy, kid. Yeah. It's like trying to help people the best I can before I die. But drawing a line under the whole thing of that, I'm just going to block people their YouTube channels. They can chunder away about me, I'm pretty old fascinating there for them to chunder away, slander away. That's the only chance you'll get, a little snifter of the hem of my garment, I can tell you, because I am out of there. So I'm going to be blocking them. I'm not going to listen to their chundering, because it brings me down. Not because of what they're saying. I mean, it's not really even very insulting, Sometimes it's actually just funny. But what, with their paranoid nonsense, what I don't like about it is I have to listen to it. And then it sort of brings me down, because it's like low IQ stuff. It's like reading Tip and Mitten or a Ladybird book and stuff like that. Or it's like talking to someone at the bus stop. It's like as well, that prattle of people that think they're more self-important than they are. That again is a really low vibration. That's really bad for me to suck that up. And I keep saging myself and having Epsom salt baths, and then you get sucked into a little death dive with it. Oh God, it's the most depressing thing ever. I feel like weeping, just because it's like they're my friends, but sort of like really sort of, horrible, mad people, and just, it's really bad. So I'm blocking all their channels, and they can crack on ahead. Crack on, as they say. The universe is protecting me, because I'm not standing around attacking other people. It's bad, it's pretty bad, and don't like it. I've actually got my ex over here from Belfast, which I filmed on my channel, in the spare room. And when he leaves, one of his brothers will come and live in my spare room. Why do I have to do that? In case some sort of person, oh, you upset this one, you upset that one. I mean, you can't really live like that. I don't like it. I really don't like it. So I'm going to cut them off, not listen to them, and be a journalist. Be a journalist. No more silly podcasts. Had enough of it. No more spilling my soul on my channel. That'll be for interviewing, co-editing, J.S. Garrett, Brian Barrett. It'll be for my hobby, which is magic. If you want to unsubscribe, please do. Journalism will be in newspapers or wherever I can, get it out there. But I'm gonna be a journalist. I'm not gonna let somebody sit there and say you can't be. You can't be. And then when people ask me why I'm not anymore, why I haven't been since 2003, well, mainly it's been bringing out a child. But the other thing, the phone hacking stopped me. The phone hacking stopped me. Why aren't you a private investigator? Oh, the phone hacking stopped me. The phone hacking. Really? When? Why? How? What? Because a few turds from really, really bad newspapers decide I'm persona non grata for no apparent reason. For Heather Mills. But Nick Parker is still there. Nick Parker, who did all those things that I taped him and I've got the tapes, but they're not actually where I live, they're somewhere else. Oh, and also for the Daily Mail. Long, long ago, people told me to take my calls. So all this asking to do illegal stuff by the Daily Mail, that's in tapes. It's not with me, and it's not with a known associate of mine. It's with somebody I keep secret, an ex-army buddy I keep secret, and nobody will find it. Nobody will find out who that is, and they've got those tapes. And I take calls from people that phone me. They might be threatening to stab people. I haven't passed that to the police, but if I keep getting harassed and, people being wound up to hate on me, I might consider that. I'm not having my life put in danger by some passing nutbag because somebody's going, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. You tried to hurt me, you tried to hurt me. You're trying to do this. You're dressing up as someone called Wendy. What? I'm not interested in any of these people. Absolutely not. And all this stuff about Sarah Adams. Oh, you were mean to her. You got some guy to threaten her. Me and her are speaking now. That was an argument, a petty argument, where she went and said things that weren't true. I said something that wasn't true on my Facebook. That's two bitchy girls having an argument that's now made up. But you get other people that come in, they roll with that and they do a show about it and say, you did this. And then, but no, that wasn't true. It's ugly. It's gossip. And it's like YouTube gossip. And some people get off on that. But me, after sitting there with Michael McKevitt, after sitting there with Special Branch, after sitting there with MI5, really? I'm sorry, I can't do it. It just stinks. It's not me. It's those old knickknacks that have been on for a week and oh, man. So goodbye. Goodbye, suckers. It's my last transmission to you people. I'll now be not mentioning you again. As I said, this is now a magic zone for a hobby of mine, which is the whole, the whole become a living god kind of thing. Yeah, I'm going to rock that, which will be my hobby. So not journalism, just the old magic and paying homage to these men that do this kind of thing. I think they're all very sexy, aren't they? So girls, boys, if you want to tune in, then tune into my channel. If you're not interested in it, unsubscribe now. And really, it's been fun. It's been interesting. I might do it in a novel at some point, or a non-fiction book. But right now, I just want to get those knickknacks off and rinse them and wash them and just, I'm going to shove them in the bin, those ones. I'm going to get some new ones. I'm going to get some cream lace. Yeah, not Tesco's. It's a good day and enjoy your day. Take care. Hope it's been helpful actually for some students or people that want to become a journalist. The main message I want to give is don't let anyone ever stop you. Not by petty insults, not by people that when you've ridden high they want to see you fall. Don't let other people see you off, okay? Slap them back. Give them a slap back. If they're slapping at you, Gary Watkinson, by spreading around, every time you go for an interview for one of the big boys, the XMI6 boys in London, Gary puts his head above the parapet and says, well, she worked for the News of the World, and then I don't hear from them again. So Gary, if you're listening, stop it, stop it. Because as you're doing that to me, I could do things to you. Could I not? I could say things about you. Remember when you got obsessed with that girl at Nationwide Investigations and you know, because she gave you that pity sex. I mean, I could just do a whole blog about it, but you know, we don't do that. We leave other people alone. Anyway, before I get a bit bitchy about Gary, okay, let's go.